I hate cliche introductions to YouTube videos. So instead of that, on this third episode of this thing I'm doing here on the Billy Listle YouTube channel, I'm going to provide a top five. For those of you that don't know, I love lists, hence the name. So I recently finished watching the High Fidelity TV show with Zoe Kravitz, and after that, a couple of weeks after I finished that, I found the High Fidelity movie from 20 years ago with John Cusack, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and it's all about music. It's all about top fives and lists and things that I really enjoy. So I went and did a High Fidelity challenge myself, and one of the top fives that they talk about in the movie particularly is top five songs about death. My mom has always told me to speak life and not death, so I'm going to give my top five songs about life. In no particular order: The Glamorous Life by Sheila E., Moment for Life by Nicki Minaj, Living for the City by Stevie Wonder, Sweet Life by Frank Ocean, and You Are the Living Word by Fred Hammond. So after that, I'm going to jump straight into the episode. How are y'all doing? Super Bowl 55 is this weekend. The Kansas City Chiefs are traveling to play the home team, Tampa Bay Bucks. I don't know if the Bucks are the official quote-unquote home team, but they will be playing for the NFL title in their home stadium, the first team to ever do that in the Super Bowl era. Two things I did not believe I would ever see in the Super Bowl is an overtime game and a team playing in their home stadium in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady has managed to do both of those things in the last 4 years. The first one coming in the huge 28-3 comeback in Super Bowl 51, and now here in Super Bowl 55. More on Tom Brady later, but I wanted to start with this. Last week I told y'all about how much I love the history of the NFL. I studied it. I love the richness of the beginning years, the lore, the Super Bowl and the stadiums, the figures, the players. I love it all. I also love the NFL quarterback. I used to play the position, and I think a part of the reason why I didn't succeed as much as I wanted to is because I constantly compared myself to Joe Montana or Michael Vick or Russell Wilson. I watched these guys so much on YouTube and on the TV, and I just wanted to be so much like them that I didn't really understand what it was to play like them seriously, the mechanics, the work, the mindset of the NFL quarterback, of the quarterback, period, in any level of football. I just copied the throwing motion and thought that that would be enough. But I am able to recall patterns in the NFL regarding the quarterback position. And last weekend, the Los Angeles Rams traded their quarterback, Jared Goff, and multiple future first-round picks for Detroit quarterback, Matthew Stafford. I saw a couple days after that the Panthers, my Carolina Panthers, my favorite team, was considering trading their own number 8 pick in this upcoming draft for Matthew Stafford. I'm going to be honest, if that would have happened, I would no longer be a Panther fan. Now, that is in part due to the way that they handled the Cam Newton, Ron Rivera, and Luke Kuechly unceremonious removals from the team last year, but also because I don't think Matt Stafford is worth that. I have a question. How many quarterbacks can you think of in the NFL off the top of your head have played in the NFL for one team for longer than a decade? Now, deduct from that list all the ones that did not win a Super Bowl with that team. Now, deduct from that list all the ones that didn't win a single playoff game with that team. Who is left on your list? For me, Matthew Stafford is the only QB I could think of to be the franchise QB for a team that for over a decade did not win a playoff game. There's another on this list that meets the criteria. I'm sure it's not on the who's who of quarterbacks you trade multiple first-round picks for, or even one for. If you would have asked me a year ago what I thought of Matthew Stafford, I would have told you he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, and I wouldn't have had much else to say other than that. The past 3 weeks have somehow jaded everyone's memory of who Matthew Stafford has been for the last 12 years. He's been that guy you rank after Matt Ryan, maybe before or after Kirk Cousins, depending on when the last time Kirk Cousins played a Monday night game or a primetime game. All of this, I believed in Matt Stafford to be a top 10 QB this whole time. Fam, I asked numerous people who their top 10 quarterbacks in the league were over the past 12 seasons, and if I ever heard anyone say Matt Stafford's name in that list, we would have a problem. Matt Stafford is the first quarterback I've ever heard of who they say could have come out of high school, highly touted prospect, coming out of the draft, number 1 pick. I know how talented Matthew Stafford is. I do. But he went 12 years in the NFL on the same team and didn't win a playoff game. Oh, he played for the Lions. They've been terrible. I would say 2 things to that. I have watched the Lions play quite a bit. Actually, they play on Thanksgiving every year. They play Aaron Rodgers twice a year. And Matt Stafford is pretty exciting to watch. So they put him on primetime quite a bit, actually. They're competitive in most of those games that I watch. They also lose most of those games that I watch. How is that his fault? How is that Matt Stafford's fault that I'm sorry, I thought this was the NFL. What player has wins and losses tied to him more than the quarterback? Well, what about Deshaun Watson? He's talented and he has these great numbers, and they went 4-12 because his team isn't good and his coach is good and the front office isn't good. Yeah. All of that was true last year too, and they won a playoff game. I'm not saying Matthew Stafford is not good or that he isn't talented. I just asked for one example where a team drafts or signs a quarterback and keeps him as a starter for 12 years. And that team is one of the NFL's laughingstocks the whole time. It don't happen. If you keep a QB for that long, that means that not only is he succeeding, but you're succeeding as a franchise. Teams don't just keep quarterbacks because they throw for a lot of yards. Everybody does that these days. This is a very unique case. Half the Cowboys fan base is already ready to say goodbye to Dak Prescott right now in his prime, and he has a playoff win. If I'm not mistaken, he wins more than he loses. Carolina gave up on Cam Newton after he gave them the winningest 9 years in their history and a Super Bowl berth. Why is everybody so giddy over Matthew Stafford? The Rams went from having the 3rd best quarterback in their division to having the 3rd best quarterback in their division, minus 3 draft picks. He's not more talented or better than Russell Wilson. Don't try it. I wouldn't take him over Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray throws almost as good as Stafford and runs 100% better. And the 49ers whip the Rams all the time anyway. We're going to see. I hope Matt can prove me wrong and show us his potential. But the fact that we're still talking about unknown potential 12 years in, that's not all on the Lions organization. Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson reached their potential. First ballot Hall of Famers. Actually, more dependent positions. I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. I find it interesting that Matthew Stafford, a top 10 arm talent in the position in history, because I believe he is, was on a terrible franchise for 12 years. Why? Because terrible franchises don't keep quarterbacks for 12 years. What do I mean by that? In the history of the NFL, no matter what the team was like before a great quarterback got there, that great quarterback made the franchise respectable at least. I'm not hearing the excuse of the Lions are so bad. If you're truly a great quarterback in every sense, you uplift your franchise every time. The Super Bowl is this Sunday, and though I wish it was Aaron Rodgers playing Patrick Mahomes rather than Tom Brady, I must admit I get more and more excited with each passing day for this game. And I don't want my hate train in the last video to mask how I really feel about Tom Brady. I believe Tom Brady is the greatest player in the history of the NFL. More impactful than Lawrence Taylor, Jerry Rice, and Jim Brown, and all of them. I heard someone say that Tom Brady isn't very GOAT-ish or cool enough to be like the other GOATs in other sports like Muhammad Ali or Michael Jordan. I think the reason why is because football is a different sport than most. Me and my brother were talking a couple of months back about how there's never really been a quote-unquote GOAT, greatest of all time in hip-hop, at least not a concrete one that everybody acknowledges in rap. And in reality, this moniker of the greatest or the GOAT is relatively new. I may be wrong, but I don't think people really started thinking about that as much as they do now until Muhammad Ali anointed himself that. maybe Joe Louis and others were revealed, like Jackie Robinson, were revered athletes, but one standing tall on their own by name as the greatest. People didn't do that as much. People would give nicknames like Elvis as the king and Aretha Franklin as the queen of soul, James Brown, the godfather. Those are more celebrities, artists, but the greatest of all time has a different ring to it. That was what Michael Jordan had on his statue in front of the United Center when he was still playing, or I think after his first retirement. And everyone believed it. Everyone believed it when Muhammad Ali said it. There were better, technical, maybe more accomplished fighters than Ali, more dominant than and more decorated basketball players than Jordan, but Jordan and Ali were set apart. They were the greatest because they called themselves it, and there was a lot of merit behind it. Hip hop has never really had that until now, I believe, with Jay-Z. But we asked my father the same question, and he said it was LL Cool J. I'm just saying that the moniker of being a singular symbol of an area of expertise is not exactly something that comes naturally. And it is definitely not so in football. I said it last week. Football is a team sport of team sports. There is no one above the team and definitely no one above the sport. Why not? Think about it. You get to see Michael Jordan's face after he scores, his expressions after he wins or loses. Muhammad Ali, you heard his bravado after every fight in his prime. There were celebrities within the sport. Football isn't exactly like that. There are helmets and heavy equipment, and there's at least 60 yards between the player and the nearest fan at all times. It's not a celebrity sport except for like Joe Namath and Deion Sanders, but go above everything in football is winning. I remember watching a top 100 greatest players of all time show the NFL Network did. They do the top 100 players of the year every year, but about a decade ago, they did the top 100 players of all time. Jerry Rice was number one. Before Tom Brady was referred to as the GOAT, it was not Joe Montana. It was not Joe Namath or these big stars. It was Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice. He was not cool. He's cool to me, but he was not flashy or a huge personality. He emphasized technicality and neatness. He won Super Bowls. He leads all the receiver categories by a mile. And most of all, he was a worker. He was a tireless grinder and molder of his art. That is why Tom Brady is the GOAT of football. He isn't exactly cool or the most talented. Jerry Rice wasn't the coolest. That was probably Michael Irvin or someone, and he wasn't the most talented. That was probably Randy Moss. But he was oddly regal. He even wore an even number 80. His uniform was symmetrical at all times. He made sure of it. He looked the same every time. Look at Tom Brady play quarterback. He wears the ever iconic number 12. His form is strong and replicable. He stands there in the chaotic pocket and stands like a statue. In that away Patriots jersey with the red, white, and blue, he looked almost regal. Football is not about being cool. It's replication, it's mentality, and it's the work. I have the Bucs in the Super Bowl. I refuse to bet against Tom Brady for the rest of the time he's in the league. I just refuse to. Like I said, I'm getting more and more excited as this game gets closer. It's almost like an unstoppable force. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs meets an immovable object in Tom Brady and the Bucs. Brady hasn't been moved in 20 years. He's lost 3 Super Bowls, but if Mahomes beats Brady here, I think that is very consequential because of the trajectory that Mahomes is on. And if Brady is the GOAT, I believe he is, he beats another potential GOAT. He's beaten the statistical GOAT in quarterback play, and Drew Brees. He's beaten the talent GOAT, in my opinion. So I'm going to say it's already Mahomes. I believe the talent GOAT is Aaron Rodgers, and now he's met with the potential successor to him in terms of the GOAT of totality of everything. I'm so excited. With all of Tom's Super Bowls have been amazing games. Even the game against the Rams a few years ago, I went back and watched that game last summer. It's actually a really competitive, good game if you sit down and watch it and analyze it, which I wasn't able to do at the time. I talked about it in the Bucs Saints game. There is a GOAT factor that you have to consider. You say, okay, the Chiefs have Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and this piece they could use. They can have a big game and multiple defensive corners. And they won last year, so they had that continuity. the Bucks have these weapons with Mike Evans and Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin and Gronk and the running backs, and their defensive unit has played very well all postseason, and they're playing at home. And of course, the QB matchup, Mahomes is the best in the league. He may be a bit banged up, but you know exactly what you'll get from him every game. But Brady is the GOAT, and he can defy so many disadvantages and do some things that just don't make sense, that you don't see coming. I'm going to ride with the GOAT factor, 27-24, and a close game. The same score as the last game the Chiefs and Bucks played, but the Bucks win this one. Let me know what you all think as the NFL winds down. I'll be getting into some more basketball-related topics as well as continuing to talk about music and movies and whatever else I want to talk about. This is my platform. Thank you all so much for supporting and listening, and I will see y'all on the next one.